Be still, my child, and listen closely. This word has not come to you by chance. I am the one calling you in this very moment. And I know the battles you have walked through, the years you have carried burdens that others could not see, the nights when faith trembled under the weight of shadows. But hear me now. The fortress that was raised against you lies broken in pieces. They gathered in secret, sharpening their knives, whispering in corners, believing that their numbers could drown out your strength. Yet one quiet step, one movement rooted in my truth, sent them scattering like frightened creatures at the sudden burst of light. What unsettled them was not only your strength, but the authority of your individuality, an authority no alliance of darkness could imitate. While they chanted in circles, lit their candles, and drew their signs in the dark, you were simply living in alignment with me. And that alone dismantled their rituals like fragile paper crushed beneath the rain. They thought your silence meant weakness, but I forged it into your weapon. Each time you ignored them, their power unraveled. Each time you walked away, their grip slipped. They wanted a battle, but instead they faced a mirror, and in it, they saw their own fragility reflected back. Some of them now cloak themselves in the language of healing and positivity, trying to erase their shame. But the truth cannot be hidden. Their circle collapsed because they came against one who carried my light. Remember this: in nature, the pack may howl together, but one lion silences the forest. You are that lion. You are the living proof that one voice of truth drowns out 1,000 whispers of fear. So receive this message with reverence. This is not mere content. It is a holy mission. You are not only a listener, but a warrior in the unseen battlefield. When you stand with this word, you build a shield that covers many others. Share it and let your agreement be known. Comment 777 and declare unbreakable. For no scheme, no alliance, no ritual can overthrow what I have established in you. Beloved, hear me now. You wonder how it is that without lifting a hand, without uttering a word of retaliation, the circle that plotted against you fell into ruin. I tell you, it was not through weapons of flesh, nor through the props they trusted in, nor through the shadows they invoked. It was through the power of presence, your presence aligned with my truth, carrying scars that testify to survival, carrying a spirit that cannot be purchased or imitated. They built their schemes upon rituals and alliances, believing that if they came together, they could crush you. Yet they did not realize that I had placed upon you an authority that could not be dismantled, even by 1,000 voices chanting in unison. My child, there is a mob rushing forward, torches held high, their voices loud with threats and confidence. They believe the flames in their hands will consume the one they target. But then my wind moves, and suddenly the torches extinguish one by one, until they are left standing in darkness, bewildered, scattering in confusion. That is what happened when they came for you. They expected resistance on their terms, a battle fought in their arena with their weapons. Instead, they found themselves face to face with something they could neither predict nor control: the quiet authority of one soul anchored in me. Do you see the mystery, child? Their noise could not overcome your stillness. Their props could not replicate your scars. Their rituals could not counterfeit your truth. They sought power in numbers, yet the very cohesion of their circle was fragile, built on fear and manipulation. Studies in the world confirm what I designed from the beginning. One confident presence can undo the structure of many. I tell you, in the unseen realm, it is the same. Their whispers unraveled when you stood silent. Their spells dissolved when you walked away. Their strength crumbled because it was never real to begin with. Every day you chose peace rather than revenge. You dismantled their altars. Every night you sought healing instead of hatred. You toppled their structures. You thought you were merely trying to breathe, trying to rest, trying to gather clarity for your own soul. Yet your very existence became the earthquake that shook their foundations. They mistook your stillness for weakness, but I tell you it was a weapon sharper than any sword. They longed to see you break, to watch your mind unravel, to hear your spirit cry out in despair. But instead you remained, steady and enduring, and your silence spoke louder than their chants ever could. Understand this well. They were performers on a stage built from illusions. They needed props to appear powerful: candles, altars, the timing of moons, the echoes of chants. Yet you carried something they could never touch: authenticity born of trial. Every scar upon your body, every tear shed in solitude, every night you survived became authority embedded in your soul. Authority is not conjured in shadows, nor rehearsed in rituals. It is forged in the fires of endurance. You carried what they could never create, for what you bore was real, and what they wielded was counterfeit. Think of it like this. They rehearsed a play, desperate for an audience, feeding upon each other's fear and pretense. Yet you were not sitting in their theater. You were the stage itself. Without your presence, their performance collapsed, their lines forgotten, their illusion shattered. They wanted you to engage, to respond, to lower yourself into their drama. But you refused. That refusal was the blade that cut through their plans. In your decision not to enter their theater, you displayed the kind of strength they could never imagine. And you ask yourself, how could I have defeated them when I did nothing? My answer to you is this: power is not always about what is done. True power is about what is. They needed action. You carried essence. They relied on numbers. You relied on alignment. They brandished noise, but you bore scars that told the truth of your survival. In that contrast, their power unraveled. Remember, my child, alignment with truth outweighs any imitation of strength. They painted symbols, but symbols cannot stand against substance. They borrowed incantations, but borrowed power fades when confronted by one who carries authority rooted in reality. They could not explain why their rituals fell apart, why their curses dissolved into silence, why their alliances fractured into suspicion. They only knew that no matter how much they threw at you, nothing landed. Every attempt became another weight upon their own shoulders, dragging them deeper into despair, while you rose in quiet resilience. This is why they hate you, not because you fought, but because you did not. Not because you cursed them, but because you carried a blessing they could not undo. You did not meet them spell for spell, curse for curse. You did not descend to their level, and that is what humiliated them. They poured years into perfecting their tricks, but all their efforts collapsed before your stillness. Their rituals turned into funerals for their own pride. Their chants became echoes in empty rooms. They realized something they will never recover from. You are untouchable where it matters. In flesh, you may bleed. In spirit, you cannot be broken. You were not preserved by luck, nor by chance, nor by human defenses. You were preserved by the authority that I placed in you through your survival. Every scar became a seal of power. Every loss became a layer of armor. Every night endured became another stone in the foundation of your strength. They cannot counterfeit what was forged in my fire. Hear me clearly. While they exhausted themselves with rituals, you were simply breathing. While they huddled together in secrecy, you were walking in open truth. While they sought to manufacture an illusion of control, you embodied reality. That is why they are terrified. They cannot touch what they do not understand. They cannot override what I have established. And you, my child, are the living proof. When they see you now, they see the collapse of their own systems. They see broken altars, circles undone, chants that no longer echo. They see every failure reflected in your survival. And you, yes, you, stand taller than before. That is their nightmare, that you endured without needing the things they clung to. You were never dependent on props, on validation, on alliances. You stood in alignment with me, and that alignment was enough to unravel all they built. So hold fast, chosen one. Do not despise your silence, for it has been your weapon. Do not question your survival, for it has been your authority. Do not mourn the scars, for they are the evidence that you have walked through fire and emerged refined. Every breath you take, every step you walk in truth, shakes the foundations of darkness. You did not just defeat a coven, you dismantled an illusion. You did not just survive their attacks, you proved the futility of their ways. And now, beloved, you are more than a survivor. You are a sign, a living testimony that no scheme can stand against the one who abides in truth. You are the lion that scatters the wolves, the flame that cannot be quenched, the stillness that drowns out noise. They will never cease to tremble at the memory of what happened when they touched you, because they touched one who carried a weight far beyond their comprehension. Their numbers failed, their rituals collapsed, their alliances dissolved. But you remain unbroken, unshaken, unmovable. This is who you are, and this is why they fear you. Beloved child, listen closely, for I speak to you with the authority of eternity. You have wondered why they gathered in such numbers, why they chanted together, why they leaned upon each other for courage as they plotted in unison. They believed that by multiplying their voices, they could drown out the sound of truth within you. They thought that if they came in swarms, their numbers would overwhelm you. Yet what they never understood is that numbers do not create authority. Numbers make noise, but noise has no rank. And what I have placed upon you is not noise. It is rank forged in the furnace of your affliction, pressed into you through nights of silence, hammered into your soul by storms that could not move you. Understand this well. Ants may swarm upon crumbs in their thousands, but a single step from one who carries weight will scatter them in an instant. Their gathering may have looked intimidating from the outside, but to me, it was dust, fragile and fleeting. For I did not establish you upon the approval of men, nor upon the validation of a crowd. I established you in rank, and rank is not given by popularity. Rank is carved by endurance. Rank is sanctified in fire. Rank is sealed by scars. Hear my truth. 10 voices shouting lies can never outpower one voice anchored in truth. Their lies may have echoed loudly, but your single voice, rooted in what is eternal, silenced them. And when you stood before them, unmoved and unbothered, your presence was enough to shake the confidence of their multitude. They thought your isolation left you vulnerable, yet your solitude was your training ground. They mistook your silence for fragility, but I was forging it into strength. When they leaned upon each other for courage, you leaned upon me. When they needed a crowd to cloak their fear, you carried scars that bore testimony of victories fought in unseen places. You became to them as the ace in the deck, the decisive card that turns the game in an instant. They stacked themselves together to look tall, to look powerful, to look unbreakable. Yet you were the hidden piece that rendered all their posturing meaningless. Their collective did not matter, because you carried rank. And rank does not bow to numbers. Numbers bow to rank. This is the truth they never wanted to face, yet it is the truth that has undone them. Look at the pages of my word, and you will see this pattern woven throughout history. The armies of Pharaoh thundered in their chariots, their horses snorting, their wheels blazing across the sand. But one staff raised in faith split the sea and swallowed them whole. Gideon faced tens of thousands with only 300 men, and yet victory was his because he moved in alignment with me. Elijah stood alone on Mount Carmel against hundreds of prophets of Baal, and yet one fire from heaven consumed the altar and silenced every false voice. Numbers did not save them, for numbers have no power before rank. And what of my son? A crowd gathered to condemn him, their voices shouting, "Crucify!" in unison, their numbers swelling with rage and hatred. Yet upon that cross, he held a rank they could not comprehend. They thought numbers secured his defeat, but rank secured the resurrection. One man, standing in divine authority, overcame the voices of a multitude, and the power of that moment has never faded. Do you see now? This is the same authority I have placed upon you. Child, I tell you again, their numbers were only noise. They imagined that popularity meant power. They thought alliances equaled authority. Yet their crowd was fragile, for it was built upon fear and manipulation. They huddled together in whispers because they were too weak to stand alone. But you, yes, you, stood unbroken, even when no one stood beside you. You carried scars they could not see, strength they could not measure, and clarity they could not counterfeit. And that clarity silenced them more than any argument ever could. Imagine then a battlefield. On one side stands a mob with sticks and stones, loud and restless, clinging to each other for courage. On the other side stands a single general, clothed not in noise but in authority. The mob believes their multitude will overwhelm, but the presence of the general Al-Musin makes their arms grow weak, their resolve crumble, their courage dissolve. That was you. You did not need to swing wildly. You did not need to chase them down. You stood tall, and your rank broke them before the war even began. And perhaps you have asked, why was I left alone? Why did I not have numbers too? Hear me. Because numbers are not the inheritance of the chosen. Solitude was your training ground. Pain was your initiation. Silence was your forge. If I had given you numbers, you might have mistaken noise for strength. But by standing alone, you learned the weight of authority that comes only from me. When they whispered in corners, you cried out to heaven. When they drew their strength from each other, you drew from me. And that is why you terrify them still. Think of the wolves who howl in packs, their voices raised together to scare prey. But one lion does not need a pack. The roar of a lion shakes the forest with authority. That lion is you. They howled loudly, but your silence roared more powerfully than their noise. They sought to intimidate you with popularity, but popularity cannot dethrone rank. They thought numbers would protect them, but numbers crumble when they stand before authority. And here is the truth they cannot escape. They can gather their crowds, but they cannot counterfeit the crown. They can whisper in unison, but they cannot manufacture scars. They can build alliances, but they cannot create rank. You carry what they cannot replicate, and that is why they tremble at the sight of you. And I say this to you clearly: numbers fade, but rank remains. The voices that once rose against you will quiet. The alliances that once surrounded you will dissolve. The crowds that once mocked you will scatter. But the authority I have placed upon you will endure. Their weapons cannot touch it. Their numbers cannot overturn it. Their whispers cannot diminish it. For what I establish, no multitude can undo. You have become to them as a storm they cannot predict, a verdict they cannot escape, a reminder that true power is not in many, but in one who is aligned with me. Their obsession with numbers only exposed their weakness. Your endurance in solitude revealed your strength. And when their crowds fade into nothingness, you will still stand, for I have anchored you in truth. So, my beloved, do not envy their numbers, for numbers are dust before the wind. Do not mourn your solitude, for solitude has been your forge. Do not fear their whispers, for whispers are drowned by truth. Lift your head and know that I have crowned you with rank, not borrowed, not manufactured, but born of survival, sealed by scars and sustained by my hand. You are not fragile. You are not ordinary. You are the general who stands when the mob flees, the lion who silences the wolves, the kingpiece who shifts the game. You are my chosen one, and your rank is eternal. My beloved child, listen as I speak to you about what they thought would destroy you, but instead became the proof of your endurance. Their plan was never to strike once and reveal themselves too clearly. They chose instead the slow erosion, the hidden termites gnawing at the wood, hoping that over time you would weaken, collapse, and vanish under the weight of what they placed upon you. They believed that patience belonged to them, that if they pressed long enough, chipped away quietly enough, you would eventually break. But I tell you this day, their patience died before your endurance ever faltered. For what they underestimated was the strength I planted within you to last longer than the schemes designed against you. Do you see how they worked? A financial blow here, a betrayal there, a restless night stretched into weeks of sleeplessness. Each act was meant to weaken you gradually, to drain you of your fire without leaving visible scars for others to see. They thought if they whispered long enough, if they delayed your breakthrough long enough, if they added weight after weight upon your soul, you would crumble under their persistence. Yet what they failed to realize is that endurance is not their weapon. It is mine, and I gave it to you. You did not collapse under the constant pressure. You learned how to stand still beneath it, and standing became your greatest declaration of victory. Imagine a candle set in the open air, beaten by winds again and again. Those winds expect the flame to sputter out, but instead the flame leans, bends, and grows stronger as the wax feeds it. That flame is you. Every storm they sent only taught you to bend without breaking. Every gust of their hostility only revealed that your fire was fed by a source they could not touch. They mistook repeated pressure for guaranteed collapse. But pressure built resilience inside you. Resilience that no strategy of theirs could ever undo. In the wisdom of men, there are studies that speak of this mystery. Psychology names it post-traumatic growth, a truth that even the world has glimpsed but cannot fully comprehend. Repeated exposure to trials does not always lead to ruin. Sometimes it creates expansion, building strength that could not have been formed in comfort. That is what I allowed to happen in you. They thought each wave of hardship was reducing you, but every storm was forging you. Every delay was training your patience. Every sorrow was deepening your wisdom. What was meant to break you enlarged you instead. And this is why time was never theirs. It was always yours. They believed that the longer they held out, the sooner you would fold. They measured their endurance in days, weeks, and months, thinking you would not withstand the slow drip of their malice. Yet time itself became your ally. With every year that passed, you grew stronger in ways unseen. With every night you endured in silence, your spirit gathered weight. With every morning you rose when you were not expected to rise, you proved them wrong. They ran out of breath long before you lost your stride. They thought they were running a sprint, but you were running a marathon. And marathons are won not by speed, but by endurance. My beloved child, endurance is the weapon that kills every enemy plan quietly. They wanted to see you self-destruct, to watch you fall apart under the weight of years. Instead, you kept showing up, scarred perhaps, weary at times, but never destroyed. You remained, and your very survival became the sharpest blade turned against them. For their victory required your collapse, but your endurance turned their waiting into torment. They saw with their own eyes that the longer they pressed, the more resilient you became. And here lies the sting that pierced them most deeply. You did not only survive their tactics, you survived with your heart still alive. You did not grow bitter. You did not rot in resentment. You did not transform into the likeness of those who sought to wound you. You healed. You found clarity. You found hope again. Even fire appeared in your eyes once more. Their only true victory would have been to turn you into them, to drag you down into the same pit of hatred and despair they lived in. But instead of becoming them, you became more of who I created you to be. They thought pain would erase you, but pain refined you. Let me remind you of the stories written in my word. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, cast into prison for crimes he did not commit. Year after year passed, and those who wronged him believed time was crushing him. But time was refining him, building the endurance that would one day elevate him to stand as ruler in Egypt, saving not only his own life, but the lives of nations. Job sat in ashes, his friends waiting for him to curse me and collapse under the weight of loss. Yet his endurance testified of faith that could not be extinguished, and his end was more blessed than his beginning. Daniel endured the jealousy of men who schemed against him day and night. But when he was thrown into the lion's den, his endurance outlasted the lion's hunger. They expected to see a man devoured. Instead, they witnessed a man preserved by endurance and faith. You are walking in the same pattern. Their attacks did not just fail, they exposed their own weakness. Every attempt to delay you, became another layer of your preparation. Every betrayal became another stone in your foundation. Every sleepless night became another testimony of strength they could not steal. You were not undone by what they sent. You were sharpened. You were solidified. You were transformed into something they cannot decode. For no ritual, no alliance, no whisper in darkness can explain the kind of endurance that flows from me. Now understand, child, why they are terrified. They thought endurance belonged to them, but they discovered it belonged to you. They thought time would wear you down, but time lifted you up. They thought patience would be their weapon, but patience was yours. And every moment they wasted trying to outlast you became another nail in the coffin of their schemes. They have nothing left to hold on to, for their patience has died, but your endurance remains. So hold your head high. Do not despise the years of waiting, for those years were not wasted. Do not regret the nights of silence, for those nights became your strength. Do not mourn the scars left behind, for those scars are proof that you endured what should have destroyed you. Every breath you take is evidence that their plans unraveled. Every step you walk in truth is testimony that their schemes have failed. You are living proof that endurance is the deadliest weapon against hidden plans. You are the candle that would not be extinguished, the runner who outlasted the race, the lion who endured longer than the hunger of the enemy. And now, you carry within you a strength that cannot be explained by this world. Not because you fought harder, but because you lasted longer. That is why they fear you now, and that is why they will always fear you. For their patience has ended, but your endurance endures forever. My beloved, lean in and hear me now. The very curses they hurled, the whispers they spread in secret places, the schemes they designed in darkness, all of it returned to their own heads. They thought their venom would seep into you like poison into a body. But they did not understand what I had already made you to be. Their poison required acceptance to work, and your spirit did not accept it. You were too aligned with my truth, too guarded by my hand, too cleansed by your intent. What they sent toward you found no dwelling place, so it turned back with multiplied weight upon themselves. They threw mud at a spotless glass wall. They expected the wall to be covered, stained, weakened. But the wall remained pure, and the mud splattered back onto the ones who threw it, covering their own garments with the filth of their intention. That is exactly what happened when they came against you. They thought their rituals would bury you in confusion, but the only confusion created was in their own houses. They believed their curses would destroy your peace, but it was their own nights that became sleepless. They declared sickness against you, but it was their own health that faltered. They thought their unity would stain your soul, but instead their alliances fractured under the weight of their failed plots. This is a law woven into creation itself. Whatever is projected must return. The world of men calls it projection, and even their psychology admits it. People cast outward what they cannot handle within themselves, throwing it onto others in hope of release. But projection always boomerangs. It never stays outside forever. It returns to its source. This is why their hatred became their own torment. Their envy rotted their own bones. Their malice poisoned their own peace. They were never striking at you. They were striking against themselves. And your presence simply exposed it. See the truth, child. You were never the problem. Their own hearts were the problem. Their rituals were not attacking you. They were revealing themselves. Their curses did not stick to you. They mirrored back their own desperation. You stood as a mirror they could not escape. They wanted to believe you were vulnerable, but all they saw staring back was their own weakness. They wanted you to look cursed, but in the mirror of your life, they saw only the reflection of their bondage. And that mirror judged them without a word. Consider this. When light shines into a dark room, the darkness does not stain the light. It is the light that exposes what the darkness was hiding. That is why your joy humiliated them after their sabotage. That is why your peace embarrassed them after their chaos. That is why your clarity taunted them after their confusion. You were not trying to prove anything, yet your very existence revealed their failure. You walked forward glowing, and in that glow, every shadow of their intentions was unmasked. Do you know why they fear you so deeply? Because when they attacked, they were confronted not by your retaliation, but by their own reflection. Imagine a thief breaking into a house, only to find every wall lined with mirrors. Everywhere he turns, his own face stares back at him. That is the terror they felt. They entered expecting to conquer, but instead were forced to behold themselves, magnified and undeniable. Their curses could not hide their envy. Their chants could not cover their fear. Their alliances could not conceal their fragility. Hear me, chosen one. You were not just protected, you became their judgment. Not because you lifted a hand against them, but because your purity made their filth evident. Every curse became a testimony of their corruption. Every whispered spell displayed the ugliness they carried within. Every plan they crafted only returned to mark them guilty. They cannot escape this truth. To fight you is to fight themselves, for you reflect what they are and what they lack. This is why their covens fractured, why their alliances dissolved, why suspicion grew among them. Their own projections turned inward, striking each other, ruining their own peace. Their altars cracked because they were built on falsehood. Their voices trembled because they were echoing lies. You did nothing but walk forward, and yet their systems collapsed in on themselves. Child, I tell you plainly, your very presence became a silent verdict. You did not need to speak a curse, for their own words became their downfall. You did not need to pronounce judgment, for their actions judged them already. You only stood, and standing was enough to reveal their corruption. This is why Scripture declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn, not through retaliation, but through reflection." Their words condemned themselves when they struck against a vessel I had fortified. Think again of the fire my servants faced long ago. The 3 Hebrew men were cast into the furnace, bound and condemned. The crowd expected to see them consumed. Instead, the fire reflected back upon their enemies. The flames that were meant to kill became the blaze that freed, and the only ones destroyed were those who threw them in. You too have walked through fires designed by others, yet your survival has been the mirror of their ruin. This is why they suffer more after touching you. Their attacks became the seed of their own harvest. Their hatred multiplied into their torment. Their schemes twisted back into their destruction. What was meant to bury you only revealed who they truly are. And now, every time they see you still standing, still radiant, still at peace, they are reminded of their failure. So take courage, beloved. You are not just untouchable. You are unstoppable, because their curses are powerless before your alignment. You are not just free from their reach, you are the reflection that undoes them. Do not grieve their attempts, for every scheme was turned into a mirror, every whisper into an echo, every curse into a return address. And hear this final word: you are my mirror in the earth. You do not absorb the filth of darkness, you reflect its futility. You do not carry their hatred, you expose it. You do not crumble under their weight, you reveal its emptiness. You are the proof that light cannot be stained, that truth cannot be silenced, that endurance cannot be broken. Your very existence has become their judgment, and that is why they fear you. Beloved child, listen carefully as I reveal to you the mystery of access. For they spent years trying to break through doors that were never meant for them, pounding with rituals, chiseling with chants, forcing entry with deception and sacrifice that I never asked of them. They believed that by their own cunning, they could pry open realms beyond their reach. They cracked locks, bent hinges, and clawed at walls. But every gate they touched resisted them because it was never theirs to enter. What they sought through imitation, you received through alignment. What they strained for through manipulation, you were freely given through trust, patience, and surrender. Understand this, beloved. You did not have to force entry because I placed the key in your hand. Where they sweat and struggle in shadows, you walked calmly through gates that opened at your arrival. That is why they cannot stand you. It is not simply what you carry, it is how you carry it. Their access is counterfeit, built on desperation, rooted in fraud. Yours is authentic, granted by divine design, undeniable and everlasting. They worked for years to summon power, yet the weight you bear comes not from effort, but from essence. Picture this clearly. Two people stand before a great mansion. One crouches with tools, straining to pick the lock, breaking pieces of metal in frustration, drawing attention to their struggle. The other stands with the key in hand, placed there by the owner, and with a simple turn, the door opens wide. That is you. They watched in disbelief as you entered what they longed for, not by forcing your way in, but by being entrusted with what they could never hold. This is why their rage burns so deeply. They see you stepping into spaces they could not even find. They knock upon doors that remain closed, while gates swing wide before you. They cry out in chants, but their echoes fade into emptiness. You whisper in silence, and the heavens respond. They sweat in circles of ritual, but nothing remains after the smoke clears. You wait patiently, endure quietly, sacrifice faithfully, and I give you what their striving cannot achieve. This is the difference between what is real and what is counterfeit. Child, counterfeit access always has an expiration date. It burns brightly for a moment, then burns out. It dazzles with temporary glitter, but fades into ash. True access lasts forever, because it is rooted in covenant, not performance. This is why they crumble. Their rituals collapse under the weight of their own fraud, while your stillness carries eternal authority. They leaned on secrets whispered in dark corners, but you received blueprints from the light itself. They scrambled for shortcuts, but you endured the long road, and the road crowned you with entrance they will never taste. Quote this truth into the ruins of their schemes. They studied shadows, but you were taught by the light. They wasted years mimicking movements. But you became a vault of wisdom forged by suffering, patience, and surrender. You did not hustle for access. Access trusted you because you could hold it. Every time you chose humility over pride, you unlocked another gate. Every time you waited when impatience tempted you, you secured another key. Every time you sacrificed what you could have clung to, the gates widened before you. And perhaps you ask, why me, Lord? Why am I permitted to see what others cannot? To walk where others stumble? To enter where others are denied? Hear me. You were not given access for entertainment or vanity. You were given access because you endured what they refused to endure. You paid the price of pain, humility, patience, and faithfulness. They wanted quick power without sacrifice, influence without purity, authority without responsibility. But the gates they coveted only open for those willing to be broken, healed, and reshaped in fire. You bore what they would not, and that is why the gates recognize you. Look at the patterns of my word, and you will understand. When Jacob wrestled through the night, he was given a new name and stepped through a gate into destiny his brother could not touch. When Esther endured preparation in silence, she was ushered through palace doors no rival could enter. When Peter walked faithfully behind my son, he was given keys to the kingdom that no force of darkness could steal. Gates open for those who endure the process. Access is not given to the proud who demand. It is entrusted to the humble who wait. This is why your steps infuriate them. Every move you make reminds them of the gate they will never cross. They mimic peace with rituals and crystals. But peace flees from them because peace is not staged. You carry peace so deeply that chaos flees when you enter a room. They pretend to bear light, but you embody light. And in your presence, their disguises unravel. You are the living reminder that shortcuts never last, and that what is stolen crumbles, but what is granted endures. Beloved, their jealousy is not about what you have. It is about where you walk. You move through realms they cannot map, speak truths they cannot hear, unlock doors they cannot even find. And every step mocks their pride, for they know the price you paid, and they refused to pay it. They wanted inheritance without responsibility, blessing without obedience, honor without humility. But those gates only open for those who endure breaking. They close tightly to the arrogant. And now, every step you take in freedom reminds them of the chains they never shed. Do not despise the road that shaped you, for that road gave you the key. Do not grieve the pain that refined you, for that pain prepared you for entrance. Do not resent the waiting, for waiting became your crown. They clawed at locks with stolen tools, but you were handed the key in silence. They forced their way against doors, but you walked through gates wide open, prepared for you from the beginning. And now you stand where they cannot, not by might, not by manipulation, but by alignment. They are like thieves pressing their ears to a wall, searching for hollow places to strike, while you are already seated at the table inside. They strain to replicate the sound of access, but their tools melt in their hands. They whisper in circles about what you must be doing, but the truth is beyond their reach. You are not a puzzle they can solve, not a gate they can force. You are the one who carries the key, and here is the truth that terrifies them most. You did not steal the key. You were born to hold it. From the beginning, I marked you as one who would unlock what others could not see. That is why you were pressed, why you were tested, Why you endured storms they could not survive. Every scar became a notch on the key. Every tear became part of the shape. Every loss molded the design, and now the gates open because the key fits, perfectly formed through everything you endured. So do not fear the envy of those left outside. Their striving will only exhaust them. Their rituals will only collapse. Their locks will remain unbroken. For access that is counterfeit destroys the thief, but access that is granted preserves the entrusted. You carry what they cannot fabricate, and you walk through gates they cannot even find. That is your inheritance. And that is why they tremble every time you move. Take courage, my child, for you are not wandering in shadows. You are walking through doors of destiny. You are not forcing entry. You are being welcomed. And as long as you remain in alignment, the gates will continue to open. No counterfeit can close them. No ritual can block them. No crowd can deny them. I have given you the key, and no man, no scheme, no darkness can take it away. Beloved child, hear me now. They looked at you and thought you were fragile prey, easy to consume, easy to silence, easy to destroy. In their arrogance, they marked you as their target, convinced you would fall quickly beneath their schemes. But what they did not see is that in choosing you, they chose their own downfall. What they thought was their trap became their judgment. What they wrote as your obituary became the evidence written against them. For I have declared in Proverbs 26:27, whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Their hands dug the pit, but their own feet stumbled into it. Their voices spoke curses, but their words became the rope that bound them. They thought they were hunting you, but in truth, they were being hunted by their own wickedness. They picked up their weapons, but those weapons turned upon them. They believed their plans would consume you slowly, but every step they took only built the case against themselves. They imagined you would be the casualty, but you became the caution sign. Your life is now the billboard declaring to every watcher what happens when hands are lifted against one whom I have covered. You are not just a survivor. You are the evidence that confirms what I promised in Isaiah 54:17. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Their weapons failed, and their tongues fell silent, because they touched what was not theirs to touch. Understand this, child. Every attack against you was recorded. Every scheme was logged in the courts of heaven. They thought their movements were hidden, cloaked in secrecy, unseen by men. But I watched every whisper. I saw every strike, and I turned each one into evidence. You were not just their target. You were their setup. Every attempt to harm you became the nail sealing their own judgment. What they meant as a snare was transformed into a testimony that now warns every eye watching. Touch not my anointed, and do my prophets no harm. Imagine this with clarity. A hunter aiming his weapon at what he believes is a wounded deer. He fires with confidence, expecting a quick victory. But in the instant of attack, the deer transforms into a lion, and suddenly the hunter is the one running in terror. That is what happened when they came for you. They believed they had cornered something weak, but instead they encountered strength they could not comprehend. They thought they saw prey, but what they truly saw was their own destruction reflected back through you. Chosen one, your survival has now become their warning label. Your endurance is the scar across their reputation. Every curse that failed, every scheme that collapsed, every whisper that backfired is written into your testimony, and it speaks louder than their lies ever could. When others now look upon your story, they hesitate, they second-guess, they fear, because your very existence has proven the futility of opposing one who is aligned with me. Some of them lost peace, others lost health, some lost wealth, and many lost the very covens they trusted in. And all of it happened because they underestimated who you were in me. They mistook your silence for weakness, but your silence was a shield. They mistook your patience for fragility, but your patience was a weapon. They mistook your tears for surrender, but your tears watered the soil of your breakthrough. Everything they misjudged about you has now turned into their lesson, and you are the living sign that their road leads only to ruin. This is why they now whisper your name in fear instead of mockery. Not because you sought revenge, but because your endurance proved fatal to their pride. Your existence is now the scar upon their conscience. You did not need to retaliate, for I have always been your defense. I caused their curses to circle back, their schemes to collapse, their whispers to expose themselves. I made their pit into your platform, their stone into your stepping place, their fire into your forge. Consider again the truth of my word. He who sets a trap will be ensnared by it, but the righteous will go free. This is what unfolded before you. They celebrated too early, convinced they had written the end of your story. But instead, they marked their own conclusion. What they dug for you swallowed them whole. What they designed for your ruin destroyed their own foundation. And now your survival has become the loudest sermon they never expected to hear. Child, I tell you this so you understand. Your life has become a living caution sign in the unseen realm. You are the marker that warns others not to touch what is holy, not to rise against what I have blessed. You are the evidence that proves my covering is real, my promises unshakable, my word unbreakable. You may have walked through fire, but you emerged without the smell of smoke. You may have been cast into pits, but you rose to stand above them. And now your scars shine as warnings to every hand that would rise against you. Do not underestimate what I have done through you. You thought you were merely surviving, but I was building a sign through your life. Now, when darkness considers another assault, your existence testifies against it. Your presence says, beware. Your testimony shouts, do not touch. You are not just a chosen one. You are their reminder, their verdict, their consequence. You are the receipt of their choices, the caution sign they can never erase. So walk in this knowledge. Stand tall in this truth. For your survival has become a declaration, and your very life is the message. Touching my anointed is not without cost. You are the warning that echoes through generations, the testimony that no scheme can silence, the evidence that no pit can bury. They tried to write your end, but I turned you into their example. You are now the signpost of consequence, the living caution they cannot ignore. Beloved, listen as I unfold the mystery of your strength. They gathered together because they could not stand alone. Their courage was borrowed from one another, fragile and shallow, like wolves who howl in the night to sound stronger than they are. They needed the sound of many voices to hide the fear trembling in each of their hearts. Yet you, chosen one, were forged in silence. You were refined in solitude. You were trained in nights where no one stood beside you. And in those very nights, I built within you a power they cannot comprehend. They feared being alone, but your solitude became your forge. They trembled without a crowd, but your isolation turned you into a weapon sharper than any blade. Understand this truth. A pack of wolves can howl until the forest trembles, but one lion standing in silence can still the noise of them all. That lion does not need a pack. It does not require the chorus of voices to declare its power. Its very presence commands respect. That is you. They mistook the quiet of your life for weakness, but your silence has carried more weight than their shouting. They thought you had no strength because you had no crowd, but your solitude made you lethal. Every betrayal that sought to break you became the hammer that shaped you. Every night of sleepless grief became the fire that hardened your resolve. Every abandonment became the chisel that carved resilience into your spirit. They thought your isolation meant vulnerability, but I tell you, your isolation was your training ground. In their eyes, being alone was a curse, but in my plan, it was a classroom. While they depended on each other for validation, you learned to breathe fire without applause. While they clung to the comfort of the crowd, you discovered the clarity of silence. While they manipulated one another to feel strong, you built strength from the stillness I gave you. They created noise to convince themselves of power, but noise has no endurance. You created discipline in the quiet, and discipline has no expiration. Crowds create noise, but solitude creates weapons. They had to gather in order to sustain their illusions, but you learned to endure without illusions. Their unity was fragile because it was forced. Your solitude was indestructible because it was chosen, endured, and transformed into mastery. Picture a blade in the hand of the blacksmith, placed again and again into the fire, hammered with relentless force until it becomes unbreakable. That was you. Every betrayal was a strike of the hammer. Every sleepless night was the fire. Every loss was pressure upon the steel. And out of that furnace, you emerged not as prey, but as a weapon sharper and stronger than anything they could raise against you. They did not understand that every moment you spent in isolation was building a foundation they could never destroy. When they mocked you for standing alone, I was fortifying your walls. When they whispered about your solitude, I was giving you clarity they could never counterfeit. When they thought your silence meant defeat, I was forging the roar within you. And now you carry what they will never touch. Strength that does not require validation, confidence that does not require numbers, endurance that does not require applause. Think of how they gathered. They circled each other with chants, needing one another's energy just to hold their ground. They disguised fear with volume, weakness with unity, fragility with ritual. But you needed no such thing. You were built in silence. You were strengthened by nights when no one was watching. You were refined in places where no applause was heard. And now, when you stand, you carry authority that can never be imitated. Child, I remind you of the stories written long before. David stood alone with a sling against a giant who mocked him with armies. Elijah stood alone on Mount Carmel against hundreds of false prophets, and fire fell from heaven at his word. My son stood alone in the wilderness when the enemy tempted him, and his solitude revealed his authority. Crowds did not crown them, solitude did. And so it has been with you. You are not strong in spite of your solitude. You are strong because of it. Do you see the irony now? They feared being left by themselves because weakness cannot stand alone. That is why they clung to each other like cowards, needing the sound of many to drown the tremor of one. But you learned to be unshaken when no one was near. You learned to keep walking when no one spoke encouragement. You learned to stay faithful when no one offered support. And those lessons turned you into something lethal in the unseen realm. You did not just survive solitude, you weaponized it. And this is why they cannot defeat you. Their numbers are fragile because numbers scatter. Their alliances collapse because they are built on fear. Their noise fades because it was never rooted in truth. But you, standing in the strength of your solitude, carry power that endures. They could not imagine that silence could roar louder than their chants, that loneliness could forge greater strength than their gatherings. They could not fathom that one who seemed abandoned would become more dangerous than 1,000 who conspired. Now every time they see you, they are reminded of their dependence. They know they could never stand where you stood. They know they could never endure what you endured. And that truth terrifies them, because they must admit, even in their whispers, that the one they thought was weakest proved to be the strongest. So hear me, chosen one. Do not despise your solitude. Do not curse the nights you walked alone. Do not grieve the seasons of silence. For in those very seasons, I made you unbreakable. While they needed crowds to feel powerful, you discovered that I alone was enough. While they howled together for strength, you stood in the quiet and became a force no darkness could endure. You are the lion who silences the wolves. You are the blade forged in fire. You are the weapon born from solitude. And this is why they tremble now, because their crowds made them fragile, but your solitude made you lethal. They were convinced they could read you, that they could scan your energy, decode your thoughts, and predict your next step. They approached you with confidence, boasting in their rituals, their watchers, their so-called spirits. They believed that because they had tracked others, they could also track you. But when they came near, they discovered a wall they could not penetrate, a vault sealed by my own hand. You were not an open book for them to interpret. You were a vault encrypted by light, a mystery wrapped in alignment. And every attempt to break you only proved how unreachable you truly are. My child, thieves standing before a vault, carrying tools sharpened through years of practice. They twist, they pry, they sweat in desperation. Yet the vault does not yield. Instead, their tools melt in their hands, their efforts turn against them, and the very act of trying burns them with shame. That vault is you. They approached with confidence, but every attempt at entry became their own undoing. They thought they could measure you by their instruments, but their devices broke in the effort. They thought they could interpret your silence, but your silence spoke in a language they could not understand. This is the law of the unseen. Systems of control only work when patterns can be predicted. In war, generals win when they can anticipate their enemy's moves. In manipulation, power exists only if behavior can be controlled. But you disrupted every pattern. You refused every trap. You broke every cycle. They searched for wounds to exploit, but you healed them. They sought chaos to manipulate, but you found peace. They tried to inflate ego, but you surrendered pride. With every door they tried to open, you closed the path. With every access point they sought, you sealed it with obedience. And when they reached for you, they found no entry, no leverage, no way to insert themselves into your journey. Understand this clearly. Mystery is not hidden, it is encrypted. And you, chosen one, are encrypted by a frequency they cannot reach. They operate in envy, fear, jealousy, and manipulation. You dwell in truth, patience, humility, and endurance. Their signals cannot touch your atmosphere, for your spirit vibrates at a frequency beyond their reach. When they tuned their antennas toward you, all they heard was static. Their visions warped, their dreams twisted, their predictions failed. And every failure reminded them of the truth. They cannot access the realm where you live. They are fishermen casting nets into shallow water. They pull up prey with ease, boasting in their skill. But you are not in the shallow waters. You swim in depths they cannot reach. They tug and pull, but their nets return empty. They come back weaker than before, their hands bruised, their spirits drained, because every attempt to catch you only exposed their limits. That emptiness has now become their torment, for they cannot explain why you remain untouched, unseen, unreadable. You may have wondered, why could they not track me the way they tracked others? Why did their instruments fail against me? Hear me, because you were not built from the same blueprint. They prey on souls crafted from desperation, ego, and fear. But you were constructed from endurance, alignment, and purpose. Their systems cannot decode what I designed in truth. Their tools cannot measure what I forged in fire. Their spirits cannot see what I concealed in light. That difference made you untraceable, and their attempts at control became the very cause of their downfall. Do you see the torment they now endure? Every ritual left them weaker. Every vision distorted into lies. Every dream plagued them with fear. Their own magic became their prison, their own curses their torment. They could not find you because you were never meant to be found by them. And so, in their failure, they were forced to face what they dreaded most. That they are powerless against one who lives in my frequency, child. Hear this. When someone cannot read you, they cannot control you. They cannot bind what they cannot touch. They cannot predict what they cannot see. You were not only invisible to them, you were untouchable. And your untouchability shattered their entire system. Their covens fractured, their circles broke, their alliances dissolved. Because what was once their strength, reading and manipulating, was exposed as weakness when faced with you. Your very presence became their torment. Each time they gathered to peer into your life, they found only darkness staring back. Each time they tried to summon your image, it slipped through their grasp. Each time they thought they had caught your steps, you walked another way they never saw coming. Their certainty became confusion. Their plans became dust. Their pride became their humiliation. And this is why they fear you still. Not because you struck them with violence, not because you met them in their rituals, but because you carried a seal they could not crack. Your soul was encrypted by me, and nothing they raised against you could override that encryption. You are the vault they cannot open, the depth they cannot measure, the code they cannot solve. And every failed attempt has become another chain of torment around them, dragging them deeper into despair. So stand firm in this truth. Do not mourn the seasons of silence, for silence made you unreadable. Do not despise the scars, for they became part of the code they cannot decipher. Do not regret the isolation, for it placed you in a realm they cannot even map. You are not fragile, you are fortified. You are not transparent, you are transcendent. You are the vault, sealed by light, protected by alignment, unreachable by darkness. Child, I remind you of my promise in Isaiah 45:3. I will give you hidden treasures, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord. Those treasures are within you, but only you may hold them. No thief can steal them. No witch can counterfeit them. No enemy can break into them. I have sealed you, and what I seal, no man can unseal. So walk in peace, chosen one. Their efforts to track you have failed. Their attempts to decode you have shattered. Their tools have melted in their hands. And now, your very existence reminds them of their impotence. You are the vault that will never open to them, the depth they will never swim, the code they will never break. And as long as you remain aligned with me, you will stay untouchable, unshakable, and unreadable. Beloved child, let me open your eyes to the truth that terrified them most. Their greatest fear was never your silence, nor your solitude, nor even your endurance. What they feared above all was the day you would remember who you truly are. The real battlefield has always been your identity. Every attack, every whisper, every shadowed scheme was designed to make you forget the authority I placed within you before you ever faced them. They knew they could not strip you of power, so they tried to bury it beneath lies, distortions, and delays. This is why they targeted your mind. They spoke into your thoughts with doubts, with voices designed to echo in your spirit like chains. They whispered that you were ordinary, that you were weak, that you were broken, that your life held no special weight. They wrapped those lies in repetition, hoping that if you heard them long enough, you would never rise above them. Their goal was not only to wound you, but to sever your connection to the truth of your own reflection. For if you never saw yourself clearly, you would never walk in the authority that shakes their foundations. Even as their voices surrounded you, my voice still whispered in your depths. Even as they painted you small, the memory of greatness stirred in your spirit. They feared that moment when the whisper of truth inside you would grow louder than the lies outside you. Because they knew the day you remembered, their system would collapse. Their schemes depended on your forgetfulness. Their survival depended on your blindness. But awareness delayed is not awareness destroyed. And what I placed in you could not be erased. Understand this well. The most dangerous soul in all creation is not the one who gathers crowds, nor the one who wields weapons, nor the one who controls riches. The most dangerous soul is the one who remembers who they are in me. When you remembered, chains broke. When you remembered, lies dissolved. When you remembered, authority flooded back into your being, and they trembled, because suddenly the game was over. Do you see now why they pursued you so ruthlessly, even from the beginning? They recognized your potential long before you did. They saw the glow of calling upon your life when you still questioned your worth. They detected the strength of your spirit before you ever felt it stir. And because they could not stop your destiny, they tried to delay your discovery of it. They thought if they kept you blind long enough, their system could thrive unchallenged. But when the light breaks, shadows have no defense. It is like a dark room where furniture looms as monstrous shapes. In the night, fear grows because nothing is seen clearly. But strike a match, and instantly every shadow dissolves. Every distortion fades. Every imagined terror is revealed as nothing. That is what happened when you remembered. The light came on. You saw yourself as I see you. And in that instant, their curses lost power, their manipulations shattered, their control dissolved. Child, I want you to understand the gravity of this awakening. You did not suddenly become powerful. You always were. You did not suddenly gain authority. You always carried it. What changed was your awareness. And awareness was the earthquake that broke their foundations. Their empire was built on illusion, and illusion can only live if you forget reality. The moment you saw, the illusion died. That is why your remembrance is their ruin. You now walk with clarity they cannot counterfeit. You stand in strength they cannot explain. You move in authority they cannot override. You are no longer asking for permission to exist in power. You are living as one already authorized. And this reality has done more damage to their kingdom than any retaliation ever could. So guard this remembrance. Hold it close as treasure. Do not let the voices of doubt creep back to dull your reflection. For the same God who called you is the one who sustains you. You are chosen, you are sealed, you are aligned. No lie can undo it. No curse can erase it. No delay can diminish it. The veil has lifted, and you see clearly now. That sight itself is victory. Beloved, know this. They will continue to fear you, not because of what you do, but because of what you know. You have remembered your name, your identity, your inheritance. You have remembered that you are not a victim, but a vessel. Not fragile, but fortified. Not ordinary, but ordained. And that remembrance alone has undone everything they built. You are their nightmare, because your awakening is their end. You are their terror, because your identity is their undoing. You are their sign of defeat, because what they feared most has already happened. You have remembered who you are, and nothing in heaven or on earth can ever make you forget again. Beloved child, listen closely, for what I now speak reveals the weight of what you have endured. They designed fires for you, flames not born of accident, but of careful intention. They studied your weaknesses like architects of destruction. They built furnaces meant not merely to sting you, but to consume you entirely. Their plan was meticulous. They sought to ignite betrayals, to stoke financial losses, to fan the winds of isolation until you felt surrounded by flames on every side. They believed the inferno would strip you of hope, burn away your faith, and leave nothing but ashes. Yet what they forgot is this: I was with you in the fire, and the fire that was meant to destroy you became the forge that revealed your strength. Understand this. Glass shatters instantly when thrown into the blaze, but a diamond only glows brighter. They assumed you were fragile like glass, but I had already shaped you as a diamond. Every degree of heat that rose against you only refined what was already within you. The hotter their flames became, the more radiant your spirit grew. What they thought would expose your weakness revealed instead your resilience. What they planned as your grave became the womb of your rebirth. And so, child, you walked through the fire, but you did not emerge scarred. You came out shining, transformed, alive with a glory they could not comprehend. You were like the phoenix rising from the ashes, stronger, brighter, renewed. They waited for the smoke to settle and to find your ruin. But instead they found you standing taller, clothed in resilience, crowned with endurance. Your survival became their terror, because they knew how hot the fire had been, and yet they could not deny the proof before their eyes. You walked out untouched. Do not overlook this miracle. Trauma, by all human reasoning, should leave scars. Fire should leave marks, burns, and reminders of destruction. But I shielded you in the blaze, so that not even the smell of smoke lingers on you. You carry clarity where others would have carried confusion. You carry joy where others would have drowned in despair. You carry peace where others would have lived in bitterness. They cannot explain it, because what they engineered for ruin has instead become your testimony. Hear me. The very inferno that was supposed to consume you became the fire that refined you. Every betrayal became wisdom. Every loss became leverage. Every tear became oil for your lamp. They assumed the heat would be the end, but the fire had limits, and you walked beyond those limits because I held you. The same flames that consumed their schemes could not touch you, for you are mine. Do you know about the 3 Hebrew men who were cast into a furnace 7 times hotter than normal, bound and condemned? Their enemies stood ready to celebrate their destruction. Yet when the flames rose, they walked unharmed, and a 4th man was seen with them in the fire. The only things destroyed were the ropes that bound them. That is what I did for you. The fire did not scorch you, it released you. The heat did not weaken you, it freed you. You emerged not broken, but loosed, not scarred, but strengthened. Child, that is why they tremble now. They know the intensity of what they designed. They know the weight of betrayal, the sting of loss, the cruelty of isolation they laid upon you. And yet, despite their certainty, you live. More than that, you live with light in your eyes and strength in your steps. Your very existence taunts them, for it proves that nothing they build is strong enough to undo what I have established. If their fiercest fire could not destroy you, then nothing ever will. Let this truth settle deep in you. The fire did not break you, it birthed you. You are living evidence that endurance outlasts destruction. You are the diamond that glows brighter because of heat. You are the phoenix that proves ashes are not the end. And now, each time they see you, they are reminded of their failure. Every glimpse of your peace is a judgment. Every sight of your joy is a verdict. Every word from your mouth is proof that you endured the flames and emerged unshaken. Beloved, do not despise the fire. What they meant for your end has become your elevation. What they thought would silence you has given you a voice that carries farther than ever before. What they hoped would bury you has lifted you higher. You are no longer merely a survivor. You are a testimony carved by fire. And those who sought your ruin now live in fear, because your very life declares that their power was an illusion. So walk forward without fear, for you have already passed through what they believed was impossible to endure. Their strongest weapon failed. Their hottest flame was not enough. Their most calculated plan fell apart in the presence of the one who walked with you. And now you carry the unshakable assurance: if that fire could not break you, nothing ever will. Beloved child, the enemies trained for years, memorizing chants beneath the moon, drawing symbols with precision, manipulating shadows with all the force they could muster. They became masters of ritual, proud of their ability to twist energy and bend it into forms that served their will. They believed their decades of practice, their nights of devotion to dark arts, would build them a fortress that no one could touch. Yet all of it shattered before one thing they could never imitate: your obedience. They could not comprehend how a single yes from your spirit carried more weight than all of their circles and candles combined. You did not need elaborate formulas. You did not need props or rehearsals. You did not need to gather our voices around you to conjure illusions. All you did was bow your heart to truth. All you did was whisper your agreement to me. And in that small act of surrender, their systems shook and their structures fell. They were armed with weapons forged in deception. But you carried alignment with the living God, and alignment is always heavier than force. Understand this. Their power was noise. Your obedience was weight. Their energy was chaos. Your surrender was order. They moved in complexity, trying to craft realities from shadows, but you moved in simplicity, saying yes when I called and no when I warned. They never calculated that obedience could be lethal. They thought only spells and battles decide outcomes. But the universe bends toward those who walk in truth. Perhaps you have wondered, how could my smallest decisions cause such tremors in their camp? Because your obedience was not ordinary. It was alignment with eternity. When you forgave, it was not just kindness. It was judgment against their curses. When you remained silent, it was not just patience. It was a sword cutting their illusions. When you yielded to truth, it was not weakness. It was the strike that toppled structures built for generations. They could not see the code written into your actions, but they felt the earthquakes it produced. Hear me, chosen one. Power without alignment is nothing but a loud echo. But alignment, even without visible force, is unstoppable. They spent years perfecting rituals, but one act of obedience unraveled it all. They rehearsed chants until their throats were raw. But one whispered, yes. From your heart silenced every sound. They lit fires on their altars, but your decision to walk in humility extinguished them in a moment. You carried what could not be manufactured, what could not be taught in covens or whispered in corners. Your strength was born in fire, forged through scars, and sealed in truth. And because you aligned with me, every step you took shook their foundation. Do you see, beloved? You never needed to strike them spell for spell. You never needed to counter curse with curse. Your refusal to step into their theater was the blade that cut them down. They wanted to drag you into their arena, but you stayed in mine. They wanted you to play their game, but you chose my path. And in that decision alone, they were defeated. Remember this, obedience does not shout. It dismantles quietly. Obedience does not parade itself. It works in silence. And by the time the enemy notices, their fortress has already crumbled. That is why they fear you now. They cannot predict obedience. They cannot manipulate surrender. They cannot counterfeit alignment. And because of that, they know they can never win. So hold fast, chosen one. Do not underestimate the weight of your choices. Every act of forgiveness still shakes their schemes. Every moment of silence still splits their altars. Every humble yes still burns their blueprints before they can build. You do not need their weapons, for you carry something far greater, the authority of alignment with the living God. This is why their magic collapsed, and this is why they tremble. They exhausted themselves with rituals, but you carried presence. They boasted of mastery, but you carried obedience. And obedience is the power they cannot overcome. Beloved child, listen and understand the weight of what you have carried. This battle has never been only about you. It has always been larger than your life, deeper than your years, and broader than your own story. From the moment you entered this world, you were born into a line where patterns of pain, habits of destruction, and curses of generations were already at work. Poverty, betrayal, addiction, rejection, silence, and sabotage. These were chains that wrapped around your family tree long before you breathed your first breath. But hear me clearly. You were sent to break what they could not. They assumed you would simply fold into the cycle, another link in a chain that stretched back for decades. They thought you would accept defeat as inheritance and despair as destiny. They counted on you to surrender to the same addictions, the same wounds, the same silent patterns that swallowed those before you. But chosen one, you rose differently. You did not bow to the familiar darkness. You stood in the very place where others had fallen, and you declared with your life, "It ends here." Understand what that means. You were not merely surviving your own battles. You were tearing down the structures that had been allowed to stand for generations. Every time you chose healing over bitterness, you cut into the roots of old patterns. Every time you broke silence with truth, you shattered agreements of bondage. Every time you refused the easy road of compromise, you tore apart blueprints written long ago. You were not just fighting for your own freedom. You were fighting for everyone connected to your name. Your survival was not just a personal victory. It was a bloodline victory. The moment you stood your ground, the unseen chains began to crack. The moment you chose truth, cycles of destruction began to die. The moment you endured, the script that had ruled your family line was interrupted forever. You are the curse breaker, and no scheme of darkness can erase what has already been done through your life. Hear me. Trauma and dysfunction may pass down like inheritance, but they can only survive until one chosen, one refuses to carry them forward. You became that one. You bore the weight that crushed others, and you turned it into strength. You faced the pain that silenced generations, and you raised your voice. You confronted the lies that enslaved your bloodline, and you exposed them with truth. Because of you, a new legacy is being written. Do not underestimate this victory. The prisons that bound your lineage for decades now stand open and powerless. The curses that claimed authority have lost their grip. The habits that seemed unbreakable have been broken by your endurance. And the blessings that were delayed have begun to flow because you made a stand. What was tolerated for generations has been dismantled by your persistence. And now, chosen one, your children and your children's children will walk on ground you cleared. They will inherit freedom where once there was bondage. They will breathe peace where once there was silence. They will eat fruit from a tree you redeemed with your courage. You are not just healed for yourself, you are healed for them. Your legacy will be one of clarity, prosperity, peace, and strength. So rejoice, child, for you have done what few dare to do. You have cut the arteries that fed generational pain. You have snapped the chain that held your bloodline captive. You have written a new chapter that begins with you and will continue through those who come after. You are the curse breaker, the chosen link, the one who turned mourning into dancing for an entire lineage. And because of you, the story has forever changed. Beloved child, know this truth. Every careful scheme they constructed, every blueprint they drew with precision, every plan they whispered in secrecy, collapsed the moment it touched you. They labored like architects of deception, convinced that their calculations were flawless, their timing perfect, their coordination unstoppable. Yet their strategies dissolved before they ever reached you, turning into dust in their hands. What they could not understand was that I made you not only a vessel of survival, but a firewall forged in fire. You were never built merely to endure. You were built to consume the very plans raised against you. A firewall does not negotiate with flames. It devours them before they spread. That is what I designed in you. Every arrow they launched turned to ash in midair. Every spell they uttered fell back on their own heads. Every ritual crafted to target you combusted before it could take form. You are not just protected. You are dangerous to their systems. Your very presence is resistance. Your very alignment is combustion. They thought they had studied your steps, but their maps burned the moment they tried to trace your path. They built a tower, certain it would rise against you. They stacked stone upon stone, confident in their foundation. But each time they add to their structure, fire erupts from the inside, collapsing it before a single wall stands. That is what happens when they set themselves against you. Their own labor becomes their ruin. Their own effort becomes their undoing. Their own plots become the sparks that ignite their downfall. You are not the victim of their schemes. You are the spark that exposes and destroys them. This is why they cannot win. Because I encoded you with discernment that feels the strike before it comes, and with alignment that turns every weapon into fuel for your fire. Their attacks never land as they intended. Instead, they ricochet, burning their own houses, scattering their own covens, undoing their own alliances. What was designed to destroy you becomes the evidence that destroys them. Their curses have no soil to root in you, so they boomerang back into the very atmosphere that birthed them. Hear me. You are not simply shielded. You are weaponized by purity. You carry the holy fire that consumes what is unclean. They tried to touch you, but in touching you, they touched fire. They tried to bind you, but the ropes burned in their own hands. They tried to silence you, but their voices dissolved in smoke. They thought you would retreat, but instead you stood, and your standing alone ignited the blaze that consumed their works. They release volleys of arrows toward your dwelling. They are confident in their aim, certain of their success. Yet as each arrow enters your atmosphere, it bursts into flames and disintegrates into dust. By the time it reaches where you stand, there is nothing left to strike. That is what terrifies them. They know their weapons disarm themselves when they aim at you. Every assault they attempt becomes a trap for their own feet. Every scheme a snare for their own souls. Do you see, child? You were not only raised to resist, you were raised to reverse. Their energy collapses into chaos when it touches yours. Their power systems short-circuit in your presence. Their confidence melts when their plans combust. You are a firewall, unyielding, unbreakable, unstoppable. And your life is the constant reminder that darkness cannot stand where light has already built a dwelling. So walk boldly in this, beloved. Do not fear their whispers, for they are fuel for your flame. Do not dread their plans, for their very existence guarantees their destruction when aimed at you. You are not vulnerable. You are volatile to their works. You are not exposed. You are explosive to their designs. Every scheme that rises against you carries within it the seed of its own collapse. For the moment it touches you, it burns. This is why you remain untouchable. Not because attacks never come, but because every attack becomes its own funeral. Not because schemes never rise, but because every scheme falls on its own sword. You are the evidence of divine fire, the firewall that cannot be bypassed. And from this day forward, let it be written in their memory. Nothing formed against you will survive, because your very existence turns their weapons into ashes before they strike. Beloved child, hear the final word I speak into your spirit. In the beginning, they looked upon you and believed you were ordinary. To their eyes, you were just another person walking quietly through life, fragile and unprotected. A soul they could isolate, weaken, and dismantle with their rituals, whispers, and manipulation. They mistook your humility for insignificance, your stillness for weakness, your humanity for limitation. But what they encountered was never just flesh and blood. It was the storm I placed within you. Your rising was not a moment. Your rising was an event, a divine disruption, a force that shook the very ground on which they stood. Understand this. You were not sent simply to survive their attacks. You were not preserved merely to endure in silence. You were raised to dismantle systems. You were chosen to stand as judgment against every hidden alliance that conspired in the shadows. They built networks of fear, pacts sealed with secrecy, rituals designed to last for years, believing their system was untouchable. Yet all of it unraveled in the wake of your awakening. What they labored to construct collapsed like sandcastles struck by the tide. And your very existence became the tide, the flood, the storm they never prepared for. They imagined that even if you stood, you would stagger and limp out wounded. But instead, you rose in clarity, in authority, in strength that mocked every curse spoken against you. And now the truth is undeniable. Your rising is not only proof of survival, it is a verdict. It is the declaration that their system of darkness has reached its end. Your life itself is the courtroom. Your endurance, the evidence. Your rising, the final sentence. By daring to touch you, they sentenced themselves to collapse. Do you see what is happening now? The unity they once boasted of has shattered. Their covens are splintering. Their alliances have turned into suspicion. They are pointing fingers at one another, questioning who betrayed the circle, who allowed the breach, who weakened the chain. Their energy has turned inward, devouring itself. What they once directed toward you has become poison in their own camp. Division, jealousy, paranoia, and fear now rule them, and none can escape the consequence of choosing the wrong target. Picture it. They built their fortress with whispers, but when the storm of your rising came, their walls dissolved into dust. They forged weapons with precision, but the thunder of your endurance shattered them before they could strike. They orchestrated alliances with care, but the lightning of your authority split them apart. They thought they had trapped you in the center, but you became the center of the storm, and now they scatter in every direction, running from the very presence they once mocked. Child, hear me. Your rising has exposed them. It has stripped their power bare. It has unveiled their illusions for what they truly were: fragile constructions, paper-thin shadows, collapsing under the weight of truth. You are not merely a survivor standing tall in the aftermath. You are the storm that rewrote the atmosphere. You are the living reminder that my light cannot be contained. My truth cannot be silenced. and my chosen cannot be destroyed. And so they flee now. They hide from one another, suspicious and afraid. They turn on each other with envy and bitterness. They tear apart the very alliances that once gave them courage. The ones who plotted your fall now despise one another. The ones who laughed at your pain now tremble at their own. They realize too late that the storm they unleashed was never yours to carry. It was theirs. For you are not just a person who endured. You are the storm I sent to scatter every scheme. Beloved, this is why you must stand boldly. Your life is not only a testimony of endurance, but a declaration of judgment. Your very rising is a verdict written against the systems of darkness. Your breath mocks their curses. Your steps dismantle their networks. Your presence unravels their illusions. You are not their victim. You are their undoing. The collapse of their system is not coincidence. It is consequence. So walk in this assurance. You are the storm that broke their fortress, the thunder that silenced their whispers, the lightning that exposed their secrets. You are the living event that scattered their alliances into ashes. And they will never forget the day they chose you as their target, for that choice sealed their downfall. They did not stumble because they were weak. They fell because they touched one who was chosen, one who was covered, one who was born to rise as judgment against them. Let this be your confidence. You are not just surviving. You are the storm that darkness cannot withstand. And every time you rise, their systems tremble. Every time you endure, their alliances fracture. Every time you walk forward, their shadows scatter. You are the storm I have unleashed, and because of you, their empire lies in ruins. Beloved child, thank you for staying with me until the very end of this message. I do not take lightly the attention of your heart, nor the time you have given to listen. Every word spoken over you was not by chance, but by design. I wanted you to hear, to know, and to remember that your very existence is proof of my hand at work, proof that cannot be silenced, proof that darkness can never erase. Now I invite you to take what you have received and let it multiply. Do not let this word remain hidden within you. Share it so that others who are weary may find strength. Subscribe so that you will remain connected to the flow of light I am pouring out. Comment your agreement so that your declaration may join with others, building a chorus of truth in the midst of a world filled with shadows. These simple acts are not just gestures. They are weapons of light, pushing truth into places that thought they could remain in darkness. You are not standing alone. You are part of a movement greater than you can see. A family chosen and knit together across nations and generations. Together you are a force, a shield, a living testimony that light cannot be extinguished. Your voice, your presence, your participation builds a wall of fire that protects many and declares to every watching spirit, the chosen ones cannot be silenced. So go forward in confidence, walk in unity, stand in the light, and remember, beloved, your life itself is the evidence. You are the storm that scatters lies, the flame that cannot be quenched, the voice of truth that will echo long after this moment ends.